There is a moment in life that quietly reveals how fragile everything really is. It's not a recession. It's not a market crash. It's one unexpected emergency. And when it happens, the question is no longer how much money you have, but how close you've been to the edge all along. The phone rang just after midnight. Not loud. Not urgent. Just persistent. The kind of sound that slowly pulls you out of sleep, not because it is frightening, but because something inside you already knows. He stared at the ceiling for a moment before reaching for it. His wife was still asleep beside him. The room was quiet. The world was quiet. But on the other end of the line, nothing was quiet. By morning, everything had changed. Not because of the emergency itself, but because of what the emergency revealed. And this is the part no one talks about. Because most financial collapse does not begin with bad decisions, reckless spending, or greed. It begins with one moment, one unexpected event, one disruption that exposes how fragile everything really was. The question is not why emergencies happen. They always do. The question is, why do they break some people completely, while others seem to survive and rebuild? And the uncomfortable truth is that the difference is rarely income. It is rarely intelligence. And it is almost never luck. Most people move through life believing they are stable. They pay their bills. They go to work. They slowly improve their lifestyle. They feel safe. But safety, in modern life, is often an illusion created by consistency. As long as the salary arrives, the system works. As long as the routine continues, the numbers add up. And over time, this rhythm becomes invisible. The mortgage, the rent, the subscriptions, the small comforts that make long days feel manageable. None of these feel dangerous. They feel normal. Until one day, normal stops. An illness. A job loss. A family crisis. An accident. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just real. And suddenly, the system that once felt stable begins to move in reverse. Savings disappear faster than expected. Bills do not pause. Responsibilities do not slow down. Time becomes expensive. This is when people discover something unsettling. Their financial life was not a structure, it was a balancing act. For most of modern history, financial survival was visible. You could see the harvest, you could measure the risk. If something went wrong, the danger was obvious. Today, risk is hidden, it lives in contracts, obligations, and expectations. It hides in monthly payments and long-term commitments. It is embedded in the idea that tomorrow will look like today. The modern economy runs on this assumption that stability will continue, that income will persist, that disruption is rare. But disruption is not rare, it is inevitable. What has changed is not the frequency of emergencies. It is the fragility of the systems we build around our lives. Over time, society quietly shifted from resilience to efficiency. Efficiency is powerful. It removes waste. It increases speed. It makes life feel smoother. But efficiency also removes margin. And margin is what absorbs shock. When a system becomes too optimized, too dependent on continuous input, it loses the ability to adapt. A small disruption can create a cascade. This is true in supply chains. It is true in technology. And it is true in personal finance. Most people are not financially broken because they spend irresponsibly, they are financially exposed because their lives are designed for stability, not interruption. They earn, they spend, they upgrade. Not recklessly, but gradually. In ways that feel justified. A better home. A safer neighborhood. Better education for their children. More convenience, more comfort. Each step feels like progress. And it is. But each step also increases the cost of staying where they are. This is the quiet trade-off of modern life. Comfort in exchange for flexibility. The emergency does not destroy them. It simply removes their ability to maintain the version of life they built. And this is where the emotional cost begins. Because financial collapse is rarely about numbers. It is about identity. The person who provided. The person who planned. the person who was responsible. In one moment, that identity feels threatened. This is why emergencies create panic. Not because of the immediate cost, but because of what the future suddenly looks like. Uncertain. Uncontrolled. Unfamiliar. The system itself is not designed to protect people from this feeling. In fact, it depends on it. Credit expands during stability. Consumption grows during confidence. Debt feels manageable when income is predictable. But when disruption arrives, the same structures that enabled comfort become pressure. Interest compounds. Time accelerates. Choice is narrow. And here is the part that few people ever notice. The financial system does not collapse when emergencies happen. It adapts. Costs shift. Risk transfers. Loss moves from institutions to individuals. Insurance limits. Employers restructure. Lenders renegotiate. The burden redistributes quietly, often invisibly. This is why, after every crisis, some people recover faster than others. Not because they avoided the emergency, but because they had distance from the edge. Distance from dependence. Distance from obligation. Distance from a life that required perfect continuity. But most people are never taught to value this distance. They are taught to value growth. To move forward. To optimize. To maximize. The culture rewards visible progress, not invisible resilience. And so the emergency becomes a turning point, not just financially, but psychologically. Some people rebuild their lives exactly as they were. They return to the same structure, the same rhythm, the same fragility, because familiarity feels safe. Others begin to see something they never saw before. That the real danger was never the emergency. It was the illusion of control. The belief that stability was permanent. This realization is quiet. It does not feel empowering. It feels unsettling. Because it means the future cannot be predicted. It cannot be secured completely. It cannot be optimized without consequence. It can only be navigated. And this changes how people think. They begin to notice how fragile modern life truly is. How quickly circumstances can shift. How little most systems care about individual continuity. But they also begin to notice something else. That resilience is rarely visible from the outside. It does not look impressive. It does not attract attention. It often appears slow, conservative, even boring. But when disruption comes, it becomes the difference between collapse and survival. The unspoken truth is that emergencies do not create financial fragility, they reveal it. They expose the hidden trade-offs people made over years. The choices that felt harmless. The commitments that felt manageable. The systems that worked. Until they didn't. And once you see this, you begin to understand something deeper about money. That the goal was never control. It was never certainty. It was never perfect stability. It was distance from panic. Because the most powerful financial position is not wealth. It is calm in uncertainty. And yet, this is the one thing the system cannot sell. So the cycle continues. People rebuild. They optimize. They grow. They forget. Until the next disruption arrives. Until another quiet phone call in the middle of the night. And in that moment, when the world is still and the future suddenly feels fragile, most people do not ask how much the emergency will cost. They ask a different question. How close was I to the edge? Without even knowing it. And sometimes, the most unsettling part is not the answer. It is realizing that the edge was always there. If this story made you pause, take a moment and think about your own life. What is the one emergency that could change everything for you? Write it in one word in the comments. Not for anyone else. Just for your own clarity. And if you want more calm, honest and deeply human stories about money, psychology, and the hidden systems shaping your financial future, subscribe to Unspoken Finance. Because sometimes, the most powerful financial shift begins with a quiet realization.